Grab yourself some coffee. We're going to be talking about the new Tern HSD Gen 2 electric bike. If you've been following me for a while, the HSD is a bike that I fell in love with in 2019 when I owned a cargo bike shop. It transformed so many people's perspective of what an electric bike is capable of without being that big cargo bike. I finally have in a couple of HSD Gen 2 bikes that I'm using to make training videos for Tern dealers. And I've had an opportunity to spend a decent amount of time on both of them. So let's grab that coffee and dig into this new bike family. Back at the time of the launch for the HSD Gen 2 at the beginning of the summer, I was on maternity leave. I did write a pretty in-depth article covering the bike and the models. If you really want to know the differences between the models of the HSD, pros and cons for each, make sure to check out that article, which I will link below. In this video, I wanted to give you my initial feelings after riding the new models, especially since I loved that first generation so much. The good news is the Gen 2 feels exactly like you would hope. A bit more refined, and the product team was able to push the HSD a little bit further into the cargo bike category. I'm going to break down this video into covering first what an HSD is, and then jump into all the newness of the Gen 2. If you know what an HSD is, look below for chapters and you can kind of skip forward. The HSD is an electric bike, obviously. It uses 20-inch wheels as Tern is known for. This allows for a really nice, easy step through to get on the bike. And the bulk of your weight from the bike and the cargo you're carrying is much lower and feels much more stable. The reason that Tern opted for 20-inch wheels is for city biking using an electric motor. You don't need the big wheel advantage of getting that wheel up to speed. So the 20-inch wheels actually feel snappier when you're going from a stop up to speed, and it allows you to have a more compact setup and a lower weight. The bike is a one size fits most, which is very handy to have to share with others, either maybe in your family or work, instead of needing size-specific bike options. You can just raise and lower that telescoping seat post and adjust and rotate the handlebars. The bike can stand vertically, as you can see back there, on the rear rack, which is super handy for storage. I personally have mine pressed against the wall in my garage. They're also very handy in this vertical position for service. So you'll see in some of my service videos for Tern that I'm typically working on them on their rear because that's how most people at home will be working on them. Tern started as a folding bike company, and some of that DNA is still found in their e-bikes. Like this really long handle post actually folds out of the way, and when you lower the seat all the way, this is called the flat fold, and allows you to roll one of these bikes, or maybe up to 3 of these bikes, in the back of a Honda CR-V. I fit a couple of them rolling in on their wheels on the Subaru Outback. So these bikes are nice and compact thanks to some of that folding bike DNA that Tern has brought. This is a 1-passenger cargo bike. The first generation could hold about 130-ish pounds on the rear rack. So those were kind of the main features of the HSD bike family. Now let's talk about what is new for the latest version. Probably the most important one to me is the increased weight capacity. The max gross vehicle weight is 396 pounds. This is compared to the 440 pounds of the GSD. This number needs to include your bike, you, and anything you put on the bike, including accessories, cargo, passenger. The rear rack went from 132 pounds max to 176 pounds max. That means I can fit on the back of the HSD as long as I haven't had too much ice cream this week. With all those increased maxes, the bike feels stiffer. It feels solid. That also means a slight increase in the base bike weight. The old HSD P9 was about 57 pounds, including the battery. The new HSD P10 is about 60 to 61 pounds. I have not weighed the new batteries, which we'll talk about in a second, so maybe the battery is also a little bit heavier. The next most important thing, in my opinion, is that all models share the same motor torque. Here in the US, you'll have 4 models. 3 of them are Class 1 and 1 is Class 3. And they all use the Performance Line or Performance Line Sport motor, which gives you 75 newton meters of torque. You are now shopping by what type of drivetrain or features you want instead of how much torque you need. This also, to me, really makes the whole line of the HSD qualified to be considered a true cargo bike. Before, I was super hesitant to say that bikes with an Active Line Plus motor were a cargo bike because while they could carry it, the motor wouldn't do very well on the hills. Another major thing that I just hinted at, you have the new Bosch e-bike system called the Smart System. For many, this system is exactly what they were waiting for because it can have integrated GPS tracking and alarm. For others, especially those that have a different bike using the Bosch BES2, which is found on the GSD, the original HSD, the Vectron, the Quick Haul, it may be frustrating because the new Smart System uses a different battery and charger than the power pack and charger we've been using for years. This has allowed people to quickly swap batteries and use chargers interchangeably between families, businesses. I've gone to a friend's house that I knew had a Bosch bike, and I didn't have to ask what type of charger they had. I knew that it would work on my bike. Now you have 2 different styles. And no, there is not an adapter to make them work. And if you find one, it will void all your warranties and your very important UL 2849 certification. The Smart System has so many cool features that I've been making several other videos and articles, from the LED remote, the different displays, the Flow app, how the e-bike alarm works, and more. I haven't finished them all. I'm really trying to get those done soon, but I'll put a link below for you to dig in if you end up with a Smart System bike. Here are the 4 main things I do want to share about the Smart System, especially if you're in the HSD market. If you buy a bike with Smart System, regardless of the brand, even if you don't want to use your phone with it, please connect to it to close the open Bluetooth connection your bike has. If you don't, if you lock up your bike and it has the battery installed, I could technically walk up, hold your remote down, and connect to it. And now you can't connect to it unless you involve Bosch, and it's a huge headache. So please close that connection before you even leave the bike shop. Every Smart System bike comes stock with something called e-bike lock. Once turned on, this works with your phone and Flow app running, or if you have the kiosk display, anytime your phone is away from the bike or your Flow app is closed, or that kiosk is off the bike, your e-bike system is locked. Your bike won't even really turn on. It just blinks LEDs at you and goes back to sleep. You'll need to have your phone that's paired with that app running or your kiosk that acts as a key on your bike. This is the only way to turn your bike back on. This is, to me, really nice feature and something that comes on every smart system e-bike, but you must turn it on in your app. And if you don't have a kiosk display, you must keep your Flow app running in the back for it to work. Oh, just a quick note on that e-bike lock. Make sure you turn it off if you're doing service on your bike, you're loaning the bike to a friend, or you're dropping it off at the bike shop for service. The S-Class versions of the HSD, which I'll cover in a second, has something pre-installed called a Connect module, which allows you to have the e-bike alarm, much different than the e-bike lock. This is a GPS alarm and tracking that's installed in your motor. It will notify you on your Flow app. This can be added to any smart system bike that doesn't have it. It's free for the first 12 months and then requires a subscription to pay for that GPS tracking. For some people, this feature alone could be worth the upgrade. The last feature is that the smart system allowed the charging port on the bike to be separate from the battery harness. Tern opted to put it in the top tube to make it easy for someone to plug in the bike for charging. You no longer have to fumble around on the ground to find that charging port on your bike. Let's talk about HSD Gen 2 models. First, I'm going to just breeze through the different models and then talk about the different classes of bikes. The first bike is the P10. This is the base model with a 1x10 chain and derailleur system. Then we go to the P5i. This is using the Shimano Inner 5E hub, which is an internally geared hub designed to handle the torque an electric bike motor can deliver. This also comes with a belt drive. Moving over to the S00, it does have a few upgrades. I'll cover them in a moment, but the main seller on this will be the heavy-duty Enviolo hub and belt drive. If you know me, the Enviolo system is my go-to for cargo bikes. In the US, we have the S11. This is the Class 3 e-bike. It's only available in the US, and it has a 1x11 chain and derailleur system. If you're in parts of Europe, you will also have an S7i option. This uses the Kindernay hub system. Maybe this will be available in the US at some point. Right now, I highly doubt it because the service centers are just not here, and we need these bikes to be true car replacements. So maybe in the future, but if you're in Europe, you have access to that S7i. Let's talk about the difference between the P-Class and the S-Class. The S-Class has some nice upgrades. There's one that cannot be easily upgraded on the P-Class, and that's the upgraded lights. A 700 lumen headlight with buttons to turn on or off the high and low beams. The rear light has built-in brake lights for when you pull the brake levers. If you've seen a current GSD Gen 2, these have those lights on the LX models. Speaking of which, the HSD also has new wiring harness, so if you need to service your lights, it's going to be so much easier to do so. This is a note to the bike shops. The other two upgrades for the S-Class are a Cane Creek suspension seat post, and that Bosch Connect module is going to come pre-installed from the factory. Both of these things, the seat post and the Connect module, can be upgraded after the fact if you opt for a P-Class model. The last important thing to say about the new generation is that all of the HSD accessories will work on this new platform except for the original Duo stand without the adjustable feet. All right, I am through my coffee, and I think I've shared with you all the key points that I want to share as I'm getting to know these HSDs. If you have any questions, if there's anything you want me to test or create a video or article, please just let me know in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching. As always, stay well, stay good, and remember to bike more and worry less.